Guys, I'm so excited tonight because I was reading a book and that book was so inspiring to me. I'm gonna show you. It's this book. It's called Sacred Kink and it's by an author called Harrington, and I never ever heard of him, which is apparently a weird thing because this guy is like huge in the BDSM community and I had no clue. Well, whatever, you know. So, and I thought, you know what, let's just send him a message and ask him if he would be willing to tell us a bit more about his book in a YouTube video. And he said yes. And then of course I had no clue what to do, but here he is. I want to invite you all to give him a huge round of applause. I know this is a video, it doesn't matter, but here is Harrington.
Thank you so much for having me on, and you are so kind. I really appreciate it. That was a very loving way to introduce me. I've been in the BDSM and kink communities since '96. Wow. And part of that journey has been what you're talking about there, right? And part of what you've been doing on this channel, which is about finding out who you want to be as a submissive.
I know that your BDSM journey is a long one already. What is the biggest lesson that you learned from your whole journey?
I would say my biggest lesson in exploring these things we call kink, or BDSM, or getting freaky, whatever it is, is figuring out the skill set on how to say, this is my yes, that this is my authenticity. Because in my life, a lot of my time, I've said things like, well, I don't want to do this. Well, I know I'm not into that. And same thing in sexuality. I said, this is, you know, we can't do this, but let's do things. As compared to saying, this is what I long for. Because in practicing that in my sexual and kink life, I've been able to practice it more with how I interact with my biological family, how I pursue my career and my work, how I interact with who I spend time with over coffee. What is my yes, and how to be authentic with it.
So could you give me an example of what changed, for instance, in the communication with your biological family? Like you said, I mean, that's, for me, is challenging. So I would love to hear from you how that changed for you.
So my father and I have a very complex and not positive in the history relationship. But now that I'm in my 40s, we're trying to find love and space for each other. And for a long time, I would just say like, well, I guess I could put up with him for half an hour. I guess I could go to that family gathering. As compared to what I now do, which is I think about what spaces my father and I might have success in, right? Like I now know when he and I travel together, rather than being either in my home or in his home, we do better.
Nice.
Right? We thrive there. Or if we're out for food and we get to break bread together, there's joy there. And so instead of saying, well, I guess I could go to your house, or like that kind of, those kinds of feelings, what I now do is say to him, Dad, it would be wonderful to go to Thai food with you. How do you feel about next Friday? So I'm doing it on my terms, and I'm telling him the things I want to do rather than what I'll cope with. And that's changed a lot because I got to practice those skills, both as somebody who is a dominant, but also as somebody who is a submissive. I'm referred to sometimes as a switch. I think of myself as liking to connect with people. And how do I connect with that specific person? And having held all these different roles, I feel really blessed to get to practice that skill of asking for yes.
That's cool. I can see that. So it's actually like what you say is in BDSM as well. You have to negotiate. You have to discuss before you start a scene. So actually when you're deciding to spend time with someone, you decide what you're going to do. And I always say that that if you don't discuss it, it's not negotiated. So what you say is you learned how to negotiate and how to find out what you want. And this is something that you could translate to other parts in your life, such as how you spend time with your dad.
I love the word you just used of discussion, because at least in America, when people hear the word negotiation, sometimes it's about what is every partner willing to lose or give up, right? There's this business story based in capitalism that says a negotiation is, oh, I guess I can do that, I can guess I can do that, which I think is a great place to start, because people are learning how to negotiate. But for me, that length of time in the scene taught me that I want to know where you'll thrive, and I want to know where I will thrive, rather than cope. My early times in negotiation were, I don't want you to spank me, and I don't want to be gagged. I was leading with my no.
Yeah.
Right? I was telling people my no's rather than saying, I saw you get caned by someone. Could we do that? It was so sexy. It was so beautiful. And not just the caning, but what did I like about seeing that? Oh, I loved seeing you moan. Right. I loved seeing you be vulnerable. I loved that. Oh, so, and then my partner might say, well, I don't want to be caned today, but, having, hair pulling really makes me moan. And suddenly I get my needs met, my desire, my hunger, which was I want to see them moan. And they get to not just be okay with it, but love having their hair pulled. So juicy.
There are so many people out there, especially when people start, that I discovered is that they think because they are the submissive that they should just do whatever the dominant is telling them to do. But what you're actually saying is that you're creating a scene together, and that you're looking for exactly what you say is where people thrive. That's amazingly. Thank you.
I learned it some hard ways. My first 2 relationships in BDSM were both with me as a slave or submissive identified person. And they are things that I look back at, and they were not positive relationships. Did I learn good things about me? Yes. But I look back and they were fairly abusive because we were following the story that you just brought up. Yeah. That once you put that collar on, you have no say. In some cases, I don't even want to hear from you. Right? But this is what we want you to do. And you are only what I sculpt you into, which is a hot fantasy.
Yeah.
Right? Super hot fantasy. But what I realized over time with the people that I played with after those 2 relationships, and there were parts of those relationships that were good, right? I don't want to say it's 100%. But when I started playing with people after that, and I found out about, say, a safe word, I had no idea about safe words before. No idea.
Oh.
Because this is a conversation in the early 90s, right? Like that just wasn't part of that conversation very much yet. And as someone who just had never read or seen, there weren't, like SM 101 was coming out, right? Like it wasn't, it was all very underground.
Yeah, I see.
And so I was playing with somebody that I knew, not being part of a community. And if you're not part of a community, or we're not watching videos like yours, people just don't know.
No, that's true.
And if you didn't know right now, if you're watching right now, you didn't know, that doesn't make you a bad person, right? It means you're learning now. And I feel so blessed that I had someone who I was bottoming to, right? Rather than being submissive. I wasn't like putting on a collar, I wasn't surrendering, but I was doing activities with him. I was bottoming to him. And he said to me, I want to know what makes you tick. You are an instrument. How do I play you?
That's awesome.
And I went, oh, I have to learn me. Shoot. Right?
And that actually, it requires a lot of honesty. I mean, especially when you're young, I can imagine that that's challenging. and confronting, no?
Yeah, and here I was in my early 20s trying to figure out, well, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
Because I might have a story in my head of what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but was that story based on my desires, or was that story based on what a past lover had, or what BDSM porn told me I should be into?
Yeah. I found out that my stories are a lot connected to the vision that my mom had on how I should be. And that was also very confronting. And well, she knows now about my submission and my DS relationship, and she despises it. And that makes it, but in a way, it makes it actually easier to separate what she thinks I should be from what I think that I am, which is different.
Yeah. And I also had to ask myself in that direction, am I doing this just to be rebellious?
Yeah.
Or is this who I really am and what I really want?
Yeah.
Both answers
So
are
resonates.
okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
But just sit with that question.
And be honest with it. Exactly. Like, I'm doing this to be rebellious, and that's okay too, but just be aware of it. Absolutely. I so agree with that. That's awesome. Thank you so much.